Hello, welcome back to Blender Social LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to do something with curve and geometry nodes. Okay, this is Blender 3.0. In the latest version of 3.0, we can actually draw curve and kind of apply geometry nodes. Okay, so you can apply geometry nodes into curve objects. This is quite new, and we can do some neat thing. If you Shift A and then check under curve, there are a lot of things, a lot of options. Curve trim is one of the funkiest one, where you can animate the start and the end of the curve. So that's one. So when dealing with curve, of course, you can always go back to original curve. You can extrude a curve. You can modify a curve like normally still. So let's save this very quickly. So this is curve GM. So when making curve, you can also draw the curve. So not this annotate, you go to edit mode and you have some new tools. You can draw, you can extrude, etc. I like to use draw. So when using curve that way, so now we have two curve and we can control the start and the end of the curve. Okay, so that's one. You can also resample curve. So it's gonna work on both curve. Resample using the count or evaluate it or the length. I think we touched on this before. We can also use point, curve to points. So curve to points, of course, we can create points based on the curve, and we can also use evaluate it or length. Length is probably the one that's kind of super useful, because if you use it with the instance geometry, let's see, point instance, and using it with geometry like a cylinder, you can have something like this. Pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool and useful. And so if you try with the something like a torus, for example, if you select this curve, still under influence of geometry nodes, go to edit mode, we can select all and delete everything. And then we can start drawing the curve, but this time instead of based on the 3D cursor, we can use surface. And this is particularly handy. Can you start? You might notice that I can start drawing and it's generating the things as soon as I leave my curve. Okay, so that's one thing to know. And we can still control the start and end, and we can control the length for the instancing. On top of this, you might notice that when I'm drawing, it's actually projecting it on the instance. So this is really cool, and I just found out about it yesterday when I was playing around with this. This means you can kind of have like this accumulative effects using just curve and geometry nodes. So this it's actually really fun. Yeah, be careful when you do something and the curve's kind of out of the surface of projections of the donuts, for example, in this case. However, yeah, this is really neat because suddenly you can control the curve and then have this accumulative effects, kind of like a painting on real objects. At some point, I really want to, like do this kind of thing when you generate curve and then skip accumulating effects, a little bit like sculpting. When you're using sculpting, and I think we don't have brush that's kind of behavior with this kind of behavior. I really want this kind of accumulative effects, kind of like using real paint, and each of every strokes should have different color, for example. Okay, now we have this. Yeah, we can play around with the radius and the depth. Right, so I think this is super neat. So with just a bunch of nodes for the curve objects, we can have this. This is a curve node, so we don't usually have remesh, but we actually have remesh now. But it's on the, I don't think it works with the geometry nodes. So if you want to actually convert that, you might need to use an actual mesh object, and we're gonna apply geometry nodes, right? Using the same geometry nodes. It's gonna complain because we don't have curve. So in this case, we want to bring the curve here. And let's see. Bezier curve works. This is the cube with a curve trimming. Let me try. I think I might forget to do something. Let's see if I can use point to volume. Bezier. So we have a torus, which is our donut, and we have Bezier curve with all these instance objects. Ideally, what I want to do is really just to bake this guy. If I F3 and then make instance real, it's gonna generate all this curve object. Maybe there's still a bug in that case. Somehow this is a cube object where we bring in a curve and we trim the curve and whatever, and then we don't get a result. Oh well, I guess I'll try to figure that out, but basically I want to be able to bake this without having to apply the modifier. I think with the curve at the moment, if you apply this, transform curve to mesh in order to apply constructive modifier. Yeah, I need to convert it into real object. So curve to point or instance to mesh. There is one attribute that can convert point instance into real mesh, but I just forgot. Anyway, I'll try to figure that out and maybe post it on the GitHub. All right, so yeah, so that's basically what curve can do. There's a lot of other attributes like curve fill is actually really interesting. Let me just show you very quickly. So curve object, delete everything and just draw curve like that. And again, geometry nodes, curve fill. You see what it creates? It creates these n-gons or triangles, and it's trying to fill. Yeah, it fills it, but it doesn't allow you to solidify, which is pretty interesting. Maybe we can make curve to mesh, but it's complaining because that's not how it works at the moment. So the only way we can solidify this maybe by using lots of points. Maybe not the best way to do this. but it works. So we use point distribute and then just convert it into real mesh. All right, maybe we at some point we're gonna make another video just to talk about curve, geometry nodes, curve, and all these nodes. Curve to point, curve to mesh. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully you'll find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.